Tom Pidcock's incredible ride changed the Tour de France, but the biggest loser may not be the riders behind him. It may be Jonas Vingegaard. Because after today's general classification shake-up, waiting may no longer be an option. What initially appeared to be a standard transition day quickly dissolved as a massive breakaway of 40 riders established itself early. By the time the escapees reached the eastern foothills, the peloton had completely surrendered control, allowing the gap to stretch to over 7 minutes. Up front, the battle for the stage victory came down to a tense, technical run-in. Swiss rider Mauro Schmid of Team Jayco Alula launched a decisive sprint with just 200 meters remaining, narrowly edging out Colombia's Harold Tejada on the line to claim the victory. Just 2 seconds behind them, British rider Tom Pidcock secured third place. The main field, containing the yellow jersey and the pre-race favourites, crossed the line 7 minutes and 30 seconds later. In a Grand Tour, a gap of this scale is rarely conceded to a group containing riders of this calibre. By allowing such a massive margin, the peloton transformed a rolling transition stage into a race-shaping event. This was no longer a disposable day on the calendar, but a major tactical shift that completely rewrote the overall competitive hierarchy before the peloton even entered the high mountains. The official general classification entering stage 14 redraws the battle lines. Tadej Pogačar remains in the yellow jersey, holding a lead of 3 minutes and 36 seconds over Jonas Vingegaard. Only 9 seconds behind the Dane, Remco Evenepoel occupies third place at 3 minutes and 45 seconds. The immediate threat, however, comes from Tom Pidcock. His long-range move vaulted him from 10th to 4th overall, leaving him just 4 minutes and 15 seconds off the lead. This alignment alters the tactical calculation. The fight for the podium is no longer a predictable battle between two primary rivals. With 4 riders separated by a little over 4 minutes, Visma Bike faces a double challenge. Vingegaard must find a way to dismantle Pogacar's lead while simultaneously defending his position from Evenepoel and Pidcock. Pidcock's presence in 4th place changes how the trailing teams must race. He is now a direct threat to the podium, rather than an opportunist hunting for stage wins. For Vingegaard, passive defense is no longer a safe option. If he hesitates on the upcoming climbs, he risks being isolated by counterattacks from behind, forcing him to ride defensively rather than challenging for the yellow jersey. In Holm's view, the competitive reality has shifted so dramatically that Vingegaard's primary battle is no longer about winning the Tour, but defending his place on the podium. This tactical interpretation suggests that a conservative approach is now the highest risk option available to Visma Bike. The logic behind this analysis rests on the changing behavior of the riders behind him. With multiple contenders now within striking distance of second place, any hesitation from Vingegaard invites counterattacks. Holm argues that if the Dane rides defensively, he effectively surrenders control of his own race, leaving him vulnerable to being isolated. This perspective is reinforced by the observable pattern of the race leader's performance. Throughout the high mountains, Pogačar has consistently looked like the strongest climber in the peloton. To defeat a leader showing no obvious physical vulnerabilities, a challenger cannot rely on a war of attrition. Analysts argue that waiting for Pogačar to experience a sudden crisis is a failing strategy. Instead, Vingegaard must actively force that crisis. At the same time, the mathematics of a 3-week race offer a shrinking window of opportunity. Every mountain stage that passes without an offensive move represents lost territory that cannot be recovered. For Visma Bike, the tactical imbalance is clear. UAE Team Emirates possesses the roster depth to cover moves, dictate the tempo, or simply follow wheels. They can adapt to multiple race scenarios, while Visma is increasingly constrained. In Holm's assessment, sitting back and following the yellow jersey's tempo is no longer a viable defensive strategy. To protect what he has and to keep his title hopes alive, Vingegaard is forced into a position where he must go on the offensive. The blueprint of Stage 14 offers the ideal arena for a long-range offensive. Beginning in Mulhouse, this 155.3-kilometer journey through the Vosges Mountains packs roughly 3,800 meters of vertical gain into a compact, explosive profile. There are no flat recovery roads here. Instead, the route serves up 7 categorized climbs in rapid succession. the attrition begins early with the 9.8-kilometre Col du Page, followed immediately by the steeper gradients of the Ballon d'Alsace, averaging 6.9% over its 9 kilometres. This constant up and down leads directly into the massive Grand Ballon, a 21-kilometre test that wears down support riders before the final decisive combination, the Col de Hague and the final drag to Le Markstein. The Col de Hague averages 7.3% over 11 kilometres, but its final mile pitches to a punishing 11% gradient. Because the summit sits just 5 kilometres from the finish line, any rider who establishes a gap on these steep, late ramps can exploit the flat ridgeline run-in to the line. It is a design that naturally penalises passive riding and hands a structural advantage to the first rider who dares to open a gap. Tadej Pogačar anticipates aggressive moves, but defending yellow on these slopes means matching accelerations rather than launching them. Yet Tom Pidcock's sudden surge up the standings shatters this predictable battle. His presence in 4th overall forces everyone to recalibrate. Visma Bike and Soudal Quickstep can no longer focus solely on the yellow jersey. They must now monitor an explosive rider capable of stealing a podium spot. Evenepoel is dragged into a defensive battle while Q36.5 suddenly finds themselves playing for the highest stakes in the sport. Stage 14 is no longer an isolated duel, but a volatile, multi-rider chess match. Forecasted temperatures approaching 38 degrees Celsius introduce a brutal physical variable. This extreme heatwave follows Tadej Pogačar's public plea to shift the Tour calendar out of July, a request Tour director Christian Prudhomme flatly rejected. At 38 degrees Celsius, recovery rates plummet and the capacity for repeated explosive efforts on the climbs is severely compromised. UAE Team Emirates intends to use their numerical superiority to suffocate attacks, while Visma Bike must apply intense pressure to break their stranglehold. Simultaneously, Soudal Quickstep will shield Remco Evenepoel while monitoring Tom Pidcock, as Q36.5 remains opportunistic. Under these conditions, the memory of Le Markstein's dramatic 2023 finish shapes every tactical calculation. 4 distinct scenarios map out the road to Le Markstein. First, Visma Bike launches a relentless early attack on the Grand Ballon, isolating Pogačar before the final climbs and forcing the yellow jersey to chase without support. Second, UAE Team Emirates asserts total control of the peloton, setting a high tempo to neutralize attacks and keep the race contained. Third, the main contenders monitor each other too closely, allowing a strong breakaway to survive and contest the stage victory. Finally, the steep ramps of the Col de Hague fracture the field completely, triggering a chaotic reshuffle of the general classification behind the leader. On the slopes of Le Markstein, calculation must yield to instinct. Vingegaard's defensive era is over. Now, he must decide how much he is willing to risk. The road ahead will dictate the limits of his ambition.